All right, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to investigate a mystery that has stumped managers and scientists for, well, for decades. What is it that really separates the absolute best from everyone else? The clues, it turns out, have been hiding in the data all along, and a new investigation has just cracked the case wide open. So let's follow the evidence and see where this thing leads.
So here it is, the central question. You can look at almost any field. I'm talking science, sports, business, the arts, you name it. And you see this tiny, tiny fraction of people producing a massive share of the results. And I don't mean they're a little better. We're talking a colossal difference. This isn't about being 10% more productive. It's about being 10 or sometimes even 100 times more productive. Seriously, how is that even possible? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just completely throw out a common myth. The bell curve. We're all taught that talent and performance are distributed kind of normally, right? Most people are clustered around the average. But when researchers actually looked at the real data for individual output, they found something completely different. The reality is that performance is almost always heavily, heavily skewed. And this is what that skew looks like in the wild. It's not a gentle hill, it's a skyscraper right next to a flat parking lot. You have most performers generating pretty modest output, and then this tiny handful of superstars who are responsible for, well, for almost everything. This extreme inequality. This is the scene of our mystery. Now, for a long, long time, there's been one primary suspect that everybody pointed to explain this whole thing, a theory known as the power law. It really became the go-to explanation for why we see these superstar effects everywhere, from how many citations a scientist gets to the box office haul of a movie star. And you know what? It was a really compelling story. So the power law story basically tells us that success isn't some steady climb. It's more like a lightning strike. It's not about consistent effort, but about a few unpredictable, absolutely massive events that just change the game entirely. Think of a scientist who toils away for years and then has one black swan discovery, or a musician who just releases one song that goes completely viral across the globe. But here's the twist in our investigation. What if that whole story of random, explosive genius, what if it's the exception, not the rule? What if the real mechanism behind superstar performance is something way less dramatic, but actually much more powerful? Well, some new research decided to put the power law on trial, right alongside a few other suspects. So the researchers did what any good detective would do. They assembled a lineup of suspects. They came up with a new way of classifying things, grouping the different mathematical shapes of performance into 4 families. And each one tells a completely different story, a different motive, if you will, for how success is actually generated. And here's our lineup. First, we've got the usual suspect, the pure power law, the lightning strikes theory. Next up is lognormal, which is the success breeds success story. Then we have a new person of interest, the exponential tail, which is more of a steady grinder theory. And finally, there's symmetric, the everyone's kind of the same model. Let's interrogate these one by one. First up, the power law. Its story is all about chaos theory, really. Imagine you're building a sandcastle, one grain of sand at a time. The pile gets bigger and bigger until one final tiny little grain causes the entire thing to collapse in a massive avalanche. This theory says superstar success is just like that, a totally unpredictable avalanche of output, triggered by some small random event. Oh right, this suspect's motive is super simple. Success breeds success. It's basically a snowball effect. An early win, even a small one, gives you an advantage that helps you win again, and that win gets bigger, and that helps you win again, and so on. The rich get richer, the famous get more famous. It's a story of runaway momentum. Now, suspect number 3 here offers a much, much less dramatic story. There are no lightning strikes, no giant snowballs. This is kind of the get-rich-slow scheme of success. It argues that performance is just a steady, predictable accumulation of work. It's the tortoise and the hare story, where the winner is simply the tortoise with the fastest, most consistent pace. And our final suspect tells the complete opposite story, one where different forces actually prevent superstars from even emerging. So imagine a call center where every single employee has to follow the exact same script, or a factory line where the belt just moves at one set speed. These constraints, they push everyone towards the average, making true superstar performance pretty much impossible. So we have our lineup. Now our investigators needed a way to finger the real culprit, and they developed this incredibly powerful new forensic tool, a statistical showdown they called distribution pitting. to see which story actually matched the evidence from the real world. And their method was unbelievably thorough. They didn't just look at one field. They gathered evidence from 229 different data sets. We're talking everyone from scientists to bank tellers. Then, for each one, they put our 4 suspects into a statistical head-to-head battle to see which theory could actually explain the real-world numbers. It was a super rigorous process designed to find the one true story. Yeah, this quote from the paper really gets to the heart of their method. See, it's not enough to just say, hey, a power law kind of fits this data. That's pretty weak evidence. To be truly scientific, you have to force these competing theories to fight it out and see which one provides a significantly better explanation. And that's what makes this whole investigation so convincing. So, after gathering all the evidence, lining up all the suspects, and running this statistical showdown thousands and thousands of times, the verdict was in. And let me tell you, it was not what most people would have expected. So, when all the dust settled, which of our suspects was the true culprit? Which one was behind superstar performance in most cases? Was it the dramatic, unpredictable power law? Was it the compounding success of the lognormal? Or was it something else entirely? In a stunning 75% of all the cases they studied, one explanation was the clear, undeniable winner. And here is the breakdown of the verdict. I mean, look at this. In an overwhelming 75% of all cases, the exponential tail, that's the steady grinder theory, was the only story that fit the evidence. And our prime suspect, the pure power law, it was the best explanation in only about 2% of cases. The evidence was just overwhelming. So, the verdict is in. The winning story behind superstar performance is incremental differentiation. Success, it turns out, is not typically born from these unpredictable lightning strikes or these runaway feedback loops. No, it is built brick by brick through steady, relentless, and predictable accumulation. So, let's just put the old myth and the new reality side by side. We used to think success was all about unpredictable shocks and this kind of unknowable genius. But the evidence now points to a completely new reality. Success is built through steady, incremental growth and just a consistent rate of output. Okay, so this is a fascinating scientific verdict, for sure. But what does it actually mean for us, for organizations, for anyone trying to achieve something? Let's break down the practical fallout from this whole thing. So how should this change the way we think about success? Well, first, it basically turns the whole idea of luck on its head. Becoming a superstar isn't random. It's a largely predictable process. And the key factor isn't some innate genius. It's something you can actually measure, an individual's output accumulation rate. This means that a person's consistent work engine matters way more than where they started, or if they got a few lucky breaks early on. And the practical takeaways here are huge. When you're hiring, don't just get dazzled by a single big win on a resume. Look for a track record of consistent output. When it comes to development, the data says you should double down on your most consistent producers. They're the ones with the highest potential ceiling. And for pay, well, this justifies big gaps between your stars and everyone else. But it also kind of suggests the crazy superstar wars at the very top might be a little overblown. This final quote from the researchers just perfectly summarizes the conclusion of our entire investigation. The path to becoming a superstar is overwhelmingly incremental. It's a marathon of consistent, high-quality work, not a series of unpredictable sprints. And that leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought. If star performance isn't a lottery ticket, if it's not some magic that gets bestowed on a chosen few, but instead it's the result of a predictable, incremental process, what does that mean for you, for your team? If superstars are built, not born, who are you building?